Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 13 Pro Max and compare it against the iPhone 14 Pro Max and see which particular phone is a better one for you. Now, I will definitely tell you, as always, if you have all the money in the world, then definitely going up to something like the iPhone, 14 Pro Max or the more expensive iPhone is definitely the better option, I would say, for the average person. That definitely makes a lot more sense, and you're going to be better off going down that direction than sticking with somewhat of an older device. But with that being said, I still think the iPhone 13 Pro Max is an excellent device. I love that iPhone so much, and I still think that's a very, very good device that I would probably recommend the average person to go ahead and buy as well. So with that being said, if you want to pick up either one of these devices, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the exterior and the outside of both these iPhones, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, on the front of this particular phone, you are getting that 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, it's a very good panel. I like this phone a lot, and I would definitely tell you this panel of this particular device is very, very good. It was the first iPhone to bring a ProMotion display, or one of the first, this in the 13 Pro, and you were getting a very good panel on this thing. I still think at this day and age, it's very, very good, and that's something I actually like a lot about this particular device. So once again, if you're buying a particular iPhone like this, you're going to be getting a very good device. It looks very good, and that kind of stuff is very important to me when I'm going through and purchasing some sort of new iPhone. So this in and of itself is a very, very cool thing. Now, on top of that, it's a very good phone, very thin bezels around it. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you are also getting a very good panel as well. Now, there's a slight difference here for the most part. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you are getting essentially the same type of, layout. So it's the same type of display. I would say maybe it gets a little bit brighter. It's still the same size. It's 6.7 inches. The only difference here actually is a much brighter panel, actually 1200 nits versus 2000 nits. That's a very big difference. The biggest difference though probably would be that dynamic island. You are actually getting that dynamic island display on this particular phone, which is actually a very, very cool thing. Getting the dynamic island, in my opinion, is such an awesome thing and an awesome feature set to have on this type of device. And that is essentially what's going on with this particular phone. So this in and of itself, I think, is a very cool thing. That's something I love having. And once again, if I'm going to go and buy some sort of phone, I definitely wanted to have some sort of capability like this of having that good of a display. And I would definitely say the iPhone 14 Pro Max's display is definitely better than the iPhone, I would definitely say the iPhone 14 Pro Max's display is definitely better than the iPhone 13 Pro Max's display. On the bottom, both these phones are giving you Lightning ports, which is still very cool. I love having Lightning, and you're still getting that type of capability on both of these devices, which again is very, very awesome. On top of that, with this particular phone, you are also getting the flat sides on both, which is something I actually like having. When you're getting a flat-sided phone, you're getting a device that essentially is, it's going to be giving you that very good quality, and it's going to be more modern. On the back side, you are getting these frosted glass backs, which I actually like and prefer a lot. I love having, frosted glass backs. They look great, they feel great, and this is some very, very cool stuff that I love having on these types of devices because it feels very good. It makes it feel so much more premium. And now all the iPhones that are coming out nowadays are also giving you frosted glass backs. So that in and of itself, again, is another really cool feature going on for this particular phone as well. So those things in and of itself on the exterior, they're very, very good, and that's something I love having on these types of devices. You're getting MagSafe capability, wireless charging, getting IP certification on both. This is some really, really good stuff to have on these types of devices, and that is something that I like a lot about both of these phones. So that in and of itself, definitely without a doubt gets a thumbs up for me. Now, on top of that, from the camera side of things, this is where things also are, maybe there's a lot of overlap here depending on how you look at it. So you are getting triple camera setups on the backside of both. And you are getting the LiDAR sensors on both as well, which is genuinely very cool. You're getting that wide, ultra-wide telephoto lenses on both of them. The only difference is, mostly for the megapixel count, is that the wide angle lens, you are comparing 12 versus 48. The 14 Pro Max has a 48 megapixel lens. That is an advantage, I would say, for that particular lens. But beyond both, there's still so much overlap, it's not even funny. You're getting 4K at 60 on the fronts and back of both of them, which again is very nice. And I would definitely tell you, if I'm going through day by day and if I'm just getting a phone, just kind of, comparing the cameras or whatever, you're really going to be getting, essentially, I would probably say, a very similar layout. But the 14 Pro Max, because it is the newer lens, because it does have a higher megapixel count for that particular camera, it is going to be a better camera overall than the iPhone, 13 Pro Max. But how much better is it going to be? That's kind of the big question here. Because to be honest, it's not really an insane amount of difference. You're going to be getting a lot of overlap, and that's something that's, essentially going to be happening here. And that's every time I go ahead and basically go through and pick up some sort of device, that's essentially what I'm thinking about, is like, oh, the cameras are going to be roughly around the same. So it's not the biggest difference in the world, but you are going to be getting a little bit of an advantage with the 14 Pro Max. So this in and of itself is probably one thing to keep in mind. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, but if you are going to want to, essentially, get the better camera, definitely something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max is going to be the better one here. So that kind of covers it up here for the most part as well. Now, in terms of the software and longevity side of things, this is also another very interesting thing. So you have to remember with, the newer types of devices, you're going to be getting longer lasting support. And that's basically what's going on with this particular phone as well. So with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, this is going to be an iPhone that's going to last longer than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. How much longer? We don't know, but it has a high likelihood of lasting longer. There could be some overlap between the 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14. So there could be some overlap there. But for the most part, you are essentially going to be getting a longer lasting phone on something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max than the 13 Pro Max. On the performance front, this is also another interesting thing, because with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you're getting that Apple A15 Bionic chip with 6 gigs of RAM, and with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you're also getting an improvement chipset, so an A16 Bionic with 6 gigabytes of RAM, so the same amount of RAM, but a different chipset. I would say that the big thing here is that you are, realistically speaking, you are getting a lot of overlap between the performance of both these phones. If you were to give me the 14 Pro Max and give me the 13 Pro Max, besides the dynamic island, I probably wouldn't be able to tell that big of a difference between them. And that's just kind of what's going on here. You notice the bigger differences when you go back like 2 or 3 generations, if that. And between these two devices, that's kind of what's going on here. You are getting a lot of overlap here, which is a good thing, because you can save some money and buy a 13 Pro Max and still get a very, very good performing device from that perspective as well. So this in and of itself for me is another very big asset and something I actually like and prefer a lot about this particular device. So just kind of keep that in mind for the most part. But I will tell you, in my personal opinion, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is going to be overall the better performing device. And once again, that's just kind of what's going to end up happening with this particular device. With the performance, with gaming, with anything across the board, you are essentially going to be getting that on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But if that was a 10 out of 10, the 13 Pro Max easily would probably, if I'm being honest, is probably like a 9.5 out of 10. Like, they're just so similar, it's like not even funny. So in terms of that kind of covers it up here. And to kind of sum up this comparison, I will definitely tell you, like, if I'm going to go ahead and recommend a phone to people, it would definitely be something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That is the phone that's better, performs better, has essentially better battery life, a better display as well. Like, that is the phone that I would probably say is the better one for the everyday average person. But if you want to save some money, you can always go for the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Like, that phone, they dominate it, they kill it. It's a very good phone as well, and it is a cheaper phone overall than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So take it as you will, but that's kind of the big thing you can kind of think about here. If I were to, again, pick up one, I think the 14 Pro Max would be the one I'd recommend, but the 13 Pro Max is still a very, very good phone, and that's something I like a lot about that particular device. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.